Pro Tem Miles,
Present.
Vice Mayor Nickerson,
Here.
Mayor Wood.
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum.
All right, we'll have a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just wanted to have, I think last meeting, I didn't get an opportunity to say, our former treasurer, and her services are tomorrow at Dumfries United, not Retta, but the one who trained Retta. No, not Don, sorry. Give me 1 second, because I want to make sure I give you all these details, right? But while I'm thinking of that, Maureen, our former supervisor, Maureen Cadigan, her husband passed away, Jim Cadigan. And his funeral services will be March the 28th at St. Francis Catholic Church in Triangle. So Jim Cadigan, I don't know if any of y'all remember him. He passed away. And we also, Joanne Amadon, yes. She passed away on March the 1st. Her service is tomorrow at Dumfries United Methodist Church at 11 a.m. So it's March 15th at Dumfries United. So Joanne, she was our treasurer here from what was it, until she retired, 1978 to 1999. So she served almost 20 years here. So just keep her and her family the more. She was beloved in this community. All right, next on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
Ms. Mayor, I move we adopt the agenda, please.
Okay, it's been moved.
Second.
And second, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. I could just do all in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. I think the ayes have it. It was easy. All right. First on our agenda is a discussion for the direction and discussion of the rescue squad. Can we get it up on the screen as well, please? They couldn't turn it on. All right. Interim Town Manager, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Tonight, we're going to run through your presentation. The handout that you have in front is a little bit more updated than the one that's in your book. It's basically the same, though. It's been updated. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the handout is the most recent one, and that's the one that's going to be on the screen. So. I would like to say that I did a tour. I videoed the whole building for you guys. It's 22 minutes, but it's 3 gigabytes, and I had no way of getting it off the phone. So that's what myself and the TSI were trying to upload it to so that you could see the walkthrough, but it's just too big of a file to transfer it. Next slide. So the town of Dumfries purchased the Triangle Rescue Squad building in 2021. And in that time, we've done some renovations to the building. We've also used the building for a few events, not very many. But as you can see, it's about 15,000 square feet. It was built in 1978, and that's something to keep in mind because that's an important point of what year it was built. It has off-site parking. As you can see, there's a gravel parking lot to the northwest of the building site that we used for the former farmers market as well as a few spaces around the building. Next slide. Port of Dumfries subdivision is behind it. Williamstown and South Cove are to the north. Go back. Thank you. The new senior town square and the existing Highland Park and Town Square is to the west of the building site. Ginn Park is also to the west. And there are multi-entrance points along the route, along the Grand Park Road street entrance. I would like to point out that there is a perennial stream that runs next to it. That's what that blue, light blue area is that you see on the screen. So it does have an RPA. If you have any knowledge, an RPA is a resource protection area underneath of the Chesapeake Bay Act. That means that any development within that area needs to be approved through the town first. It can't be done administratively. Fortunately for us, it's all impervious surface. So it's not like we'd be taking away trees or grass or anything like that. Next slide. This is just a survey, a land survey that was done at the time of the purchase. If you could see, there's a very odd property line on the east side of the building. That's the part that runs along the creek. So it does cut into the parking lot a little bit. Next slide. So these are the building conditions. There's a lot of broken panels. You can see in those blue squares, you can see where one is puckered up. Rain has gotten underneath of it. They need to be either replaced or removed. There's a lot of peeling paint. In the photograph that's the longest with the red tile in it, if you look at the gray brick, right at the edge of it, it is dark. It's because there's a leak. There's a water leak from the roof line right there. So there is some water leakage. Mayor, can you see that? Okay, all right. When the fire department, when the rescue squad left, they took a lot of things with them. They took all their kitchen equipment. They ripped out the lights from the ceiling. They took a lot of stuff that left a lot of it hanging. I'm not sure how many of you were able to go into the building when the vice president came to stump for governor. But the condition of the bingo room was not very presentable, but that's what we had at the time. It took a long time to get it done. The air conditioning didn't work. The heat didn't work. Formerly, the water was contaminated, but they had that fixed before they sold it to us. So that's not an issue anymore. But there were a lot of holes in the walls. There are a lot of things that they rip out. I don't know if you've ever been inside of a rescue squad or fire station before, but they have alarms for when they get a call in every single room. So all of those things were ripped out when they left. So there were holes everywhere. Next slide. This is inside of the apparatus area where they stored the rescue bays. There's a small door there. You can't see it from here, but there's a step up. So that's not handicap accessible. So if we were to use this for any kind of assembly use or to convert the bays and make this a completely interior room, all the handicap accessibility issues would have to be addressed.
Could just go ramp.
So the ramp it has a certain distance. It has a very small slope. So when it's a small grade, like you've got to go way back to ramp up. You know what I'm saying? The person has to be able to push his own weight up the handicap ramp. So it would take up some space in the, and the door would have to be widened. I don't believe it's 3 feet across as well. So the door would have to be widened. A ramp would have to be installed. Next slide. Existing uses, there are different spaces within the building itself. There's some office space. There's 4 office spaces in the front. There's a conference room off of the corridor. There where the bunk rooms are. There's a male and female bunk room. There's multiple storage rooms. There's also 2 server rooms and of course the bingo hall. Next slide.
And 2 showers too, right?
The showers are in the bunk rooms.
In the bunk room.
Those showers and the sinks that you saw were in the bunk rooms. This is the bingo hall. It also has a stage in it. Next slide. So these are the repairs that we've done. We had some vandalism. So a lot of the windows were broken out. We had kids throw a pumpkin through one of the windows. So we had to repair the windows, the glass for that. We replaced all the ceiling tiles. If you can see in the photograph below, how it much more uniform it looks. You can see the lighting. Of course, we put the server room in, and that's where we broadcast a broadband from. That was our ARPA project that the former town manager initiated with ARPA funding for broadbanding in the park at Ginn Park and also at this building here at this park. We have security cameras all the way around the building, and inside of that, server room, there is access to that. So a few months ago, maybe in the summertime, there was an incident with a child on the way from school. And so we were able to access that camera to see if anything happened on the street. And I don't have to come in, myself nor Rhea, our deputy director, we don't have to come into the server room to access that. I can access that right from my phone. So the chief called me at my house. I was able to look up that information to the minute and see what was going on. What we have planned for the building so far is new kitchen equipment, new audiovisual, floor cleaning, new flags, hopefully get the bingo boards repaired, and interior painting. Next slide. So there are some outstanding issues before the building can be repurposed. The first one is, as I stated before, there's not a lot of handicap accessibility. So all the doorways, entranceways, handles, bathrooms, one set of bathrooms, water fountains, and parking spaces all need to be brought up to ADA code. It would be a very costly retrofit. I think we were quoted $20,000 just to rekey the entire building. So if you don't know, that fire station has a very secure lock system. There is one key for every door in that building. So I am the key master of about 50 keys. So if we lose one, we can't get in. So it becomes an issue for us when we need to rent the space out and have people rent the space, because a staff person always has to be there. There is one code to get into the building, and we don't give that code out to anybody because we don't have the ability to change it ourselves like we do up here in this building, where if somebody leaves, or we're able to program the doors downstairs when we have council meetings to leave them open. That's an option for us, but obviously it doesn't exist that way right now. This is a very solid built building. It is a cinder block building. So it will last for a very long time. With that being said, widening doors becomes very expensive. It's not like drywall where you can take a hacksaw and cut down the side of the wall and just widen the door back open again. It will take some real construction to redo the doors in between rooms, as well as the exterior doors, to make them all handicap accessible. Excuse me. Next slide. The other issue is a fire suppression system. Current code requires that when you have assembly use, you go from an A3 to an A2, which is more restrictive, you are required to have a fire suppression system. So technically, that bingo hall should have fire suppression in it. With fire suppression, we can host about 230 people in that room standing. If we wanted tables and chairs, it would go down to maybe 175. Without any sprinkler system, with tables and chairs, it goes down to 75 people. Just the bingo hall, plus 15 on the stage and 1 in the kitchen. So that's not a lot. Most people have weddings and things like that that are way over that amount. So we'd be limited to how we would be able to rent out the space. Next slide. So you have options. The first option, 1, which is the cheapest. So you can keep it as you would keep the space as the space exists, do the upgrades, maybe convert some of the rooms into multi-purpose rooms, and use it as it is. Option 2 would to create more of a learning center where you would have a computer lab and you would have other activities in the building, more office space. You would convert that apparatus area where the trucks are stored also into assembly space. And or possibly an addition. I know that having an indoor basketball court is a wish list. It's not possible in the space that's there. Option 3 is kind of a hybrid option. You can do one of 2 things. You can tear the whole building down, consolidate the parking lot next door and this lot to create a brand new building, or you can use the parking lot next door to build an indoor basketball facility. Next slide. So to just drill down on it, option 1 is reuse the existing space. You have to renovate it to allow the uses that you want. You have to install a sprinkler system, rekey the locks, upgrade the handicap accessibility, paint, carpet, equipment. You can consider just painting and replacing the doors, and to be able to rent out the space and then begin programming some activities. Next slide. Option 2, you would upgrade the front and enclose that space entirely so that it is an enclosed space, and you now have 2 large multi-use assembly areas. You still have to sprinkler the building. You still have to rekey the locks, paint, equipment, handicap. You do a facelift to just the front facade, the forward facing. And I use this picture not because this is how the building would look, because I want you to look at the landscaping here. Right now, how the building exists, it's pretty wide open. If you you don't need to use the bays anymore for vehicle access. All that asphalt can be taken out and it can be landscaped and grass to give it a softer curb appeal, so it looks more inviting for the community to use. Next slide. Oops. And of course, the last one is the most extreme. If you were to decide to tear the building down, because you've just spent money on a building that's viable for all intents and purposes, but maybe doesn't meet all of your future needs. So with the renovations, you can still use the building. And the other option is to build a detached basketball court, indoor basketball court, that would be an addition to the building that exists right now. Next slide. So these are old plans. If anyone has never seen them before, this was the master plan for Ginn Park, which is the park adjacent to the site. Some of these things have been installed: the play equipment, the basketball court, even the garden. The garden, unfortunately, was unsuccessful. It wasn't taken care of. The amphitheater was never put in. I'm not quite sure for what reasons. It could be because of the ground. It could be that there's existing utilities. It could be that there wasn't enough space. I'm not quite sure. Next slide. I threw this in just so that you could have an understanding of how big a high school / college sized basketball court needs to be. It's about 92 feet on the longitudinal side. And the ceiling should not be less than 17 feet. So like I said before, you could probably put a middle school sized basketball court in there. You'd never be able to hit a 3 because you'd never get that arch, right, going into that net. So it would be very limiting. It's not to say that the space is not viable, right? It's viable for a lot of different things. But right now it's not ideal for an indoor basketball court. Next slide. I threw in some examples to kind of give you to get your brain to working to how the facade could look. This is an old fire station. They call them firehouses for a reason. They look like houses that just had large garages where they put fire trucks in. This is in Atlanta, and they did a very successful reuse of that space into a restaurant. Next slide. This is in Portland. And it looks pretty much the same, but you can see what a coat of paint and a color scheme can do to a facade of a building to make it more inviting and make it, personally, I don't think the one on the left even looks like a fire station. It looks like a gas station garage to me, but that's just me. So you have options. Unfortunately, the architect that I did have come out to assist me with designing a front for you all has not gotten back to me yet. So that option or that visualization is not included in this. I will share that once I have it, but I don't have it. Next slide. So as we talked about in our last work session, it's good to set your expectations up about how long this is going to take. So 21, 22 is where we are right now. We've done cleaning, minor repairs, and there was a little bit of funding in CIP. Next year, there'll be more money that we have put into CIP that will be used for the next fiscal year. I'm sorry, for 2024. But so far we can still do painting. We can still do audio visual. I just got the quote back from audio visual today. It is very high. It is very expensive. Now, I will say, like I tell everyone, like I tell my kids, like I tell my staff, like I tell every vendor I have, give me a Christmas list wish, right? Some of us are old enough to remember old Sears and Roebuck book where you went through every Christmas and circled all the stuff you wanted from your mom. That's what I want. That's what I asked for. You don't have to be. And so that's what they gave me. So that quote came back at around $100,000 just for audio visual equipment. Now that is top grade, not to need to be replaced, can do everything, has a booth in the back of the room with soundboards and everything to be able to host whatever kind of event that you need in there. I've not gone through that list yet to see if there's anything that we could cut out. For right now, we are ordering temporary audio visual that should be able to get us through until we make a decision as to what we want. I believe the next step that's very well, could be money well spent, is to have someone sit down and go through the building with what your wishes are, your highest and best use for the space, and give you and drill down on how much money it's going to cost you and how long it's going to take. So next slide. The thing that you need to keep focused on is what is your goal for the community what is the highest and best use for the facility and time versus money, right? I personally believe, I didn't put my staff comments in there, but I personally believe you can spend the money to do the upgrades to get the building so that you can change the use and you can use it. I think that will be money well spent in the long run. I also think that saving in CIP to build a separate basketball court is viable. If you do decide to tear the building down and start over from scratch, it is imperative that you have more key players than what's here in this room right now. You'll need really good architects. You'll need really good engineers. Maybe, possibly, it's up to you whether you want to have private partnerships with that to get that started, because it will be expensive. It will be in double digit. It will be in the millions of dollars for you to build a brand new building. It may come back that you don't have enough parking space. I don't know how many of you have ever been to a brand new community center before. It's no different really than building a Walmart. It's like a Walmart with a swimming pool. It requires a ton of parking space. So if you use those two lots, you would more than likely have parking at grade in a garage or underground, because there would be no place to put it, enough parking without sacrificing the building footprint. So that's something to keep in mind. I would encourage you to look at other lots that exist somewhere in town to buy and master plan a community center if that's what you chose, if that's the route that you choose to go down. And that's it.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Can you go back to the asparatus area again? I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Apparatus.
Yeah, asparatus. I was looking at the roof on that, and I guess the one thing I want to know, can that roof come off and it kind of go high? You got to go back further.
I think if that's like the second or third slide.
Mhm. Right there, right there. Looking at that roofing and stuff, can that come off and it go higher, being that it's cinder blocks? Because I know you talked about widening the bays because that's brick, but looking, I don't know what type of material that is. Could that go higher?
Those are metal beams, and it would be terribly expensive.
Okay.
You would basically have to just cut off that half of that building and then build it from the ground up. A few of the council members and I have talked about, I've been in construction for 20 years. A lot of times it's cheaper to tear it down and start from scratch. A lot of times when people keep things, it's for historical purposes, or they patch mill it, right? They do a little bit, and then when they get more money, they do a little bit more. Or it's because the site is very convenient. And I will say this site is very convenient because it's close to the schools. And there's right now at least 4 neighborhoods that are filled with kids, right? Filled. As I was out there today taking pictures, as all of you know, between 2:30 and 3:15, right? The street is just lined with kids coming from school. So the building would be used hands down. Probably more so than if you were to put it here on Main Street. I'm not saying it wouldn't. I'm just saying that it would really serve your community. But it is woefully undersized for the things that you want to do with it.
All right, so I will open this up for discussion. I'll start with you.
Thank you, Jenny, for this presentation. It's very thorough. Do you happen to have a number of how much we've spent on minor renovations already, some of the repairs that we've already done and some of the money that we've already put into the building?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know that number specifically off the top of my head. I would say it's probably close to about $20,000.
Okay. Then also I have like 2 follow-up questions. Would it be possible, like say we went with option 2, would it be possible to start some activities and continue to do some minor building to kind of build up to where we are if we were to added to the CIP process?
So the bingo hall would be the area that I would, you probably be your highest and best use right now.
Okay.
Right? It's an assembly space. It's built for an assembly space, so you could use that space. I would not use the kitchen. The kitchen is not ready for that yet, other than using a microwave. Of course, the bathrooms are accessible. There's plenty of storage there, but I wouldn't necessarily use the rest of the building per se.
Okay, so I said I had one more question, but I actually have two. So with that, is it safe to use it? Like, does it violate any codes to be in there if the kitchen is not safe? How are we going to have?
So there's really nothing in the kitchen right now.
Okay,
Right, so it's just a microwave. So that's not really a safety hazard. So as you know, with building code, it's all about life safety, welfare, and how fast people can get out of the building. That is why the numbers go down, the less sprinklers you have, because it means that if a fire breaks out, the sprinkler system will put out the fire long enough to get you to the exit. If I'm on this side of the room to the other side of the room, and there's only 75 people, we can all get out safely in time. If there's no sprinkler system, if there's 200 people in there and a sprinkler system, we can all get out of the building, hopefully without anybody catching on fire. Without a sprinkler system, that number goes all the way down to 75 because if there's a raging fire and it's in your way, you may not be able to get out of the building.
I think my mind was more going towards, we're talking about a community center. I was thinking more of if there are parts of the building that are inhabitable and we have kids running around there, is there a way to secure them to make sure that it's?
There actually is. Unfortunately, we don't have the video, but there are doors that we can use to section off the front side of the building from the back side of the building.
Okay. All right. And just for clarification, I know what it is, and I know we all know what it is, but could you kind of talk about the CIP process and what that means for our constituents to kind of tell you about how that
Our
works?
CIP process right now is a cash-based process. So we use cash in our budget to fund projects, either one time, like the street lighting project that we did in the Knolls of Dumfries. It was a one-time project. It was done. Other times it's multi-year, like when we have to buy police vehicles. So we stretch that payment out over the course of several years. This could also be a multi-phased, multi-year project, depending on how much it's going to cost. If the town wants to pay for it in cash, or you want to incur debt to pay for the building.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Jonay, thank you. I've been in the building and I have stuck my head in a few rooms, but I just want to commend you on this presentation because it's very thorough and it helps me to understand exactly where we are and what the options are. So thank you for this very thorough presentation. I appreciate it. And looking at the options, I don't know anything about buildings. So as I'm looking at these options and just off the top of my head, just kind of thinking about what we want for the community. And I hear you talking about, what I think I hear you saying is that the indoor basketball court is really only an option if we go with 3, which is tear down and start over. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's 2 and 3.
It's 2 and
Yeah.
3. So 2 would be adding to the building.
You can either, so that is what I don't know. If you've been to the building, you know that it has a very tight drive aisle around the building.
Mhm.
So if you were to put an addition in the back, it would eliminate the ability to go around the building. I don't know what the setbacks are. Like I said, it's next to a stream and the RPA, so there might be a few hoops to jump through for that. Also, you just plain may not have the square footage. Additionally, you really won't have the parking. People will have to park in the lot next door to walk across to get to the building. The good part about it is there's a kitchen in there and it's instant concessions. You wouldn't have to build concessions in. The building would just be right there. But if you go all out and build a building, say on a separate parcel, you could build all of it into it at the same time. So it's an option for both. your subject matter experts, whoever, if you decide to hire a design team, would drill down on that for you to let you know what's viable.
Okay, thank you. In my mind, option 3 isn't anything that I'm actually considering. I like the idea of option 2. I like the idea of considering an indoor basketball court. However, an indoor basketball court, when I think about it logistically and financially, I do not think that an indoor basketball court is a deal breaker for any of the options, because we have an outdoor basketball court and we still do have the Boys and Girls Club. And I recognize that the Boys and Girls Club, which has an indoor basketball court, is not exactly accessible to our most densely populated community. However, it is still within a 2-mile walk. We do have a basketball court right outside. And if that basketball court that we have there is not enough, we have the opportunity to potentially create another outdoor basketball court. The way I'm thinking about it is, when we think of the ways that we can spend the money, I would say, there are probably other ways we can spend the money that could be more impactful to a larger population of the community than to spend it on an indoor basketball court, which is, I, for one, will not use the basketball court. Or maybe one day I'll wake up and decide to be an athlete. I doubt it. But I just feel like we have basketball courts, and we do have basketball courts. And again, not to take away from anyone, but I just kind of feel like, an indoor basketball court should not be a deal breaker for options. And that's just my opinion at this part of the conversation. As we go a little deeper, there may be some more talk about it, but that's my opinion as of this moment, subject to change.
Let me just check before I come back to you. I just wanted to give Mr. Fields.
Yes, excellent presentation. I mean, I've learned so much by listening to the presentation, more so than when we spoke, and the options. Adding on to what Vice Mayor just said, and the numbers that you gave for the differences of height for the basketball court, it's going to put me in the mindset of who's going to be using it. The high school isn't close to here. So the children that we're going to mostly be entertaining would be elementary and middle school kids. So therefore, we still can have an indoor basketball court just at the lower height, because I would see more of the elementary and middle school kids using it versus high school kids. And we still have something to entertain the children. Most high school kids are not going to do that. They may come for other activities. And again, back to what Vice Mayor said, we have the outdoor court. How often is it being used now to full capacity? And in the future, that's a court there that you could very easily enclose if need be, and put some hoops up around it on the outside. So there's still opportunity for an indoor court there in the future if we choose to, with the proper professional height or college or whatever height that we need. But going back to the usage, I think the most use would be used for elementary and middle school kids. So we can do something with the Bay Area in there where the trucks used to go and still have a presentable looking court. I was, before I heard some numbers, on the third option, tear it down and start all over. But after looking at some of the pictures, and to many people that served out of that rescue squad for many years, it does hold some a lot of town sentimental value. So keeping that structure there for those who worked out of that, and that was a very busy rescue squad in its day. Very busy. I spent a lot of time there, you know, when I was on the police department. It's very useful. So I'm taking option 3 off the table and I'm more in tune to option 2, lower basketball court. It's still basketball. And I think it would be serving the children that frequent that area more. The middle school being right down the street and the townhome community there.
Mr. Pete?
Yes, I would like to say I definitely support this recreational center coming to an existence. One of the things that I do like is the option of having an additional basketball court attached to the building itself. After taking a walkthrough of the Dale City Rec Center today, that facility is amazing. You know, it's not the St. James in Springfield, but it's amazing. And I got a lot of pointers from there that could be very beneficial and of usage to the children that are in our community. That front area where the clearance is low, I would definitely support turning that into a like a multi-use with you know, when we spoke of it, town manager of the with that Rubbermaid like flooring that is you know, safe. You can do pulling some ideas from the Dale City. You can do some Zumba classes, cycling, weightlifting, karate, tumbling. I even seen the little poles on the side of the wall where the mirrors were at for the dance classes that they will have there. They said they do have a good group of dance classes that they're hosting in that building there. When it came to the control of the keypad, going back a little bit, you said that we don't have control of our keypads. When do we get control of our keypads?
No, we have, it's only
All right,
one
for
keypad
clarity.
and it's manual. It's not automated in any way.
Okay, and it's manual. Okay, cool.
Right.
Okay. Also, something to think about. If we were to put a basketball court in the large, okay, so while establishing and creating this this vision here, I'm also highly taking into consideration parking. Parking being for the outdoor exercise equipment, and parking being for the Gay Memorial Park itself, and then also parking being for the recreational center. They will be going on pretty much about the same time. So I'm definitely, I'm not for sure we could look into that wooded area that's right beside the basketball court, and there's some additional parking. If there was to be a basketball court on the outside there, if we were to move with just an outdoor court, if we can add a second court to the court that's already out there. But I would definitely like to support a court on the back end of the facility, to where it would help us save that large parking area that I believe that we're going to need it. You know, we're going to have 2 large localities going on at the same time pretty much every day. The middle school basketball court, I definitely support the circumference on that, and not allowing us to go to the levels of high school per se. 6-court thing where you could split it in half with the elementary kids. I could see 2 games going on at the same time, then building up for a playoff tree championship, which would eventually turn into the long way of the course. So I'm as we're putting this together, I'm seeing some things that could possibly help this out and set it off. With the gas unit that's in there that the fire trucks used to use to get gas, are we taking that out, or what are we looking into for that?
The gas tank that's on the side of the
That's
building
on,
outside,
correct.
my advice would be to leave it as it is right now. It's on a hillside. That's not really viable land to use. You would only need to take it out unless you plan on, like I said, building a building across those two lots.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, with the audio visual, is that intercom based?
Is it intercom
Yeah,
based?
intercom based where the director or person in charge of the building will be able to have access to each room if need be?
No, it's not that type of audio visual. It is audio visual like you hear it is in this room. We don't have access to, broadcast anything into any of the offices out there. That's always an option, but
Yeah,
it
because
costs
that's
money.
one of the visions. Hopefully we all can support it of allowing the person in charge of that facility to be able to have connections with each room. Hey, town manager, cut it out in X room, Big brother. Yeah, in that sense. These are some things. I definitely support the option 2. We got it, right? I'm definitely, let me get, I don't interrupt no one. I definitely support option 2. Option 3, I don't, that seems like I do understand that it cost wise, it could help out. But as far as where I'm looking at the same time trying to incorporate this building of trying to get our children engaged and not to have them miss too many seasons of nothing to do. So we can definitely come back to that. But as of right now, Mr. P definitely supports option 2. Are we looking into something that I believe would be very vital as a survey for the community?
It wasn't posed to me, but I believe it's a good idea because you then get a sense of what your community would like to see. It could be something that's not structural, right? It could be just classes. Like you said, they want Zumba classes, they want exercise classes, self-defense, coloring classes for kids, maybe an after-school program where kids can just go to do homework help or get on the computer. It might not have to be anything that requires any kind of physical change to the building other than what's needed for the use to change.
Excellent, because that would be very vital for us to get the support of the citizens in a positive way of getting some structure for these children to do and trying to establish some new ideas and new creations within our youth, just helping guide them right. So again, that's what I have as of right now. And thank you, town manager, for that presentation. It was dynamite.
Sure. Ms. Peterson, and then I go to Mr. Brown.
I go with option 2 as well. I'll piggyback off of the vice mayor. That's really, she said it all.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Janae. So I don't know which option to go with because there's no money associated with the options. So just being looking at what we have purchased right now, I think we definitely need to cost out the sprinkler system, the ADA piece, and make sure that it's disability afford usage for folks with disabilities. So basically those things have to be taken care of regardless of which option you go with. And I think because we have this facility right now, I think as a whole, I think we want to get something out to the community so they can use right now. So we talk about time and money, and I'm more about the time thing right now, the timing. We have the property, we have the building. I'm not really so into the basketball and athletics piece, but I am into getting the young kids ability to do something after school. And so with the facility as is, we get the sprinkler system, we get maybe some flooring put in, and this reconditioned the building as is. Everything functioning. I think we have enough room in that building to host a lot of events, a lot of different things at one time. I'm more into the type of thing of music, maybe have instructors come in, Pilates, aerobics, something from 5 to 95. So we're not going to have any elders coming there playing basketball on the thing at 95, but we still want to open up the center for everybody in the community. And as I think as Councilman Sean Pete said, that we need to get some input from the community, because what I see, maybe not what they want. And I don't believe in my heart that the focus is around basketball court. I know that's what some of us want here, and that's an easy outlet. But from where I stand and where I sit, I know how many people make it to the NBA. That's a little number. And there's so many things that we can get our kids involved in for their future growth, for development, that it's not specifically centered around sports. So if we don't open those opportunities to our community, we will be stuck in that one zone. And our kids are too talented to waste away. So I just want to get this out there and get it started. Bring some folks in to facilitate some courses and classes in a safe place, open up it to the community, and we're rocking and rolling. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Well, thank you all for your great input, and thank you for, I know this was would I give this to you on Thursday or Friday to put together?
Yeah, well, I found out about it Friday afternoon, yeah.
Friday afternoon, I asked for the presentation, and she delivered and executed, so short turnaround. So I just want to say I appreciate, I want to let everybody know I gave a short notice to put the presentation together. The presentation came together well. I want to talk about option 2. For me, I'm in favor of. Why? Because the before and possibly after school, mainly the after school, creating a community learning and education center with activities, I think is the best use. In the past, we've had in our community center here, we've had a program we used to have called Dumfries Cares, that we used to have people that come in for after school. We had tutors, we had all of those things that used to be right here in the community center, that we then lost that type of activities. Gives us the opportunity. Also, possibly, we did take a great tour of the Dale City Rec. The size of a lot of the offices in there are the size of some of their dance and exercise rooms, right? Where they had mirrors and they had a lot of things. And so when you talk about the Pilates or the stretching, and then didn't realize the demand, like over there, the demand for the little girls, because they're not going to these high $1,000 competitions. It's just people in the community. And I remember when my girls were young, and I know when Taylor was young, they used to all participate in dance. And when you look around this area, there's none in this area for that. So to be able to even convert some of those smaller ones later on in the back into some little studios or some extra activities. When you look at being able to put kids to have a place to just come and do homework or to study together. So when you look at the possible computer lab or putting computers in some of those type rooms that we got back there, to give them another space where they don't have to go home. Sometimes when you're in a group study type of opportunity, so it creates that community. Upstairs in that building at one time, we had 5 or 6 computers in a nice little lab over there that kind of went away. Also talk about, we talked about the stretch, the dance, the elementary school, but I think I'm with Mr. Brown when I say that I think it's more or less time. How fast can we get the community in that building as far as making it compliant to today's building code? I know you started the presentation out by saying this building was built in 1978. And so things were different in 1978 versus 2023 and looking at what it is. So if we can get it up to whatever codes for 2023 is and bring that back forward to see what is a reasonable timeline to make the upgrades and still be able to implement some of the servers and then be able to then integrate and partner, you know, as we look at this. And I like the idea you said even later of us even begin to consider other land options for another recreation type center, maybe later on down the line, if it's our desire as we grow to look at an indoor facility for another basketball court or something like that. But we know in the summertime, that basketball court is packed from sun up to sundown almost out there. Those kids are out there playing and use. And I wanted to go back to your diagram on the park because you said that the community gardens went away because they weren't taken care of, which I just want to dispel that. It went away because one, they didn't have any watering system out there. There was no way to water. Me and my family, we went out there. We actually built, some other people came out of the community. We actually built those community gardens. And they wanted to put in, we had some people at the time that said there was some flooding as a result that was happening down there. So they wanted to build a conduit in there. And so all of the hard work and the volunteer hours that we put in labor to build that, it got destroyed and taken away. Right. It was a different council. They had a different vision. And so they decided with just one click of the switch to destroy those community gardens that I got pictures of my little kids out there building with a hammer and all of that, putting that stuff up. So the community gardens was near and dear to my heart because I was taking jugs of water out there to water it. So water was a main issue out there with a water tap and things like that, which is why we built the facilities that we had. So one of the biggest problems we have out there, there's no water in Ginn Park. And we always talked about possibly some type of water tap with the county, water fountains in the park. When the kids are finished playing basketball, they have no place to get nothing to drink. So it's something we have to could still kind of consider where there's no water access points anywhere in that park. It was a donkey farm and they had well water. But back before they built that. So that was purchased on a community development block grant. We are now outside of the 10-year period, right, of that community development block grant. So that park has been up now about 11 to 12 years. We cut the ribbon on it in 2012.
Right.
All right. So that's kind of like a little history on the Ginn Memorial Park. And when you see there, so, you know, the basketball court was also almost like a we talked about it as a multi-purpose, and then the field we talked about later on some of the designs and a special thanks to William O'Kelly Russell, who helped us design this park. He was very instrumental in our planning commission, our architecture review board, and he was one of the founding members of our Parks and Recs Commission, who actually helped us design this park and do this layout with some of the things that could be there. So I just wanted to say that. But with all that said, I'm all for option 2. My question is, what is the length of that building? Like when you measure, because I know you talked about the size of the basketball court, but when you look at those bays, and I know it's 5 bays, but only 3 are connected, and then the other 2 are divided by walls. With path. But you couldn't have just one big open space in all 5 carports. Unless an architect came back and told us we can
Yeah, that would be your engineer,
Engineer.
your structural engineer that will tell you whether or not, more than likely, not those metal beams probably are supported by those walls in between. So they would be there still, kind of toward the edges, and you would have a different support beam in between, making that space in between even lower. So something to consider.
Okay. Well, I think I'm good.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we endorse option two and that we ask the staff to prepare a timeline of events for when we can get the ball rolling on this.
Motion on option two.
Second.
Okay, second, now we have discussion.
I just wanted to add to the discussion that for the comments that were made about Zumba and other classes and what have you, to just remind the council and public that with the outdoor fitness court coming, one aspect of that outdoor fitness court, we did opt for the additional court to that where we can host
Outdoor classes.
outdoor classes to include Zumba and things of that nature. So we are still bringing that additional aspect to the community. So, we also want to keep that in mind too, that this is not just, we're bringing a recreation center and we're bringing the outdoor fitness court. So we are still bringing, these different resources to the community to include the outdoor fitness park. So, just it's not one dimensional here. We're doing a lot. We're bringing a lot here. We're bringing a lot of resources for fitness and recreation for all levels. And there'll be something for everybody by the time it's all said and done. So just stay tuned because we're making it happen. And I'm proud to say that. And I don't want anybody to forget that that's what we're doing up here.
All right, so your motion is option two with staff bringing back a timeline
Yes,
for implementation?
correct.
The timeline. All right, any other discussion on the motion? Mr. Brown?
So should we not be considering the cost included in the timeline?
Do you want cost and a timeline?
Because I want to make sure that I manage my expectations. And if I get a timeline and we don't have the funding to meet that timeline, then I'm going to be disappointed along with the citizens of the town of Dumfries. So if we're going to move forward and we're going to be clear to everyone, let's make sure we have all that information. Because I don't know how much it's going to cost for the sprinkler system or the ADA, and that could be a big cost.
So you asking to amend the motion? Friendly amendment?
Yes,
What's your amendment to add the cost with the timeline?
yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I actually assumed that would be part of it, but yeah, I should have been more clear. Yeah.
Are you cool with the second? Okay.
Yes, Sam.
So with option two, with a cost and a timeline,
Yes.
okay? All right. Any further discussion? Oh, all right. Seeing none, I'll call for the question. You had something else?
Yes, I have one more amendment.
Okay.
If the staff could possibly identify possible funding sources.
Oh, what the cost is?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I think that ends the discussion. I'm gonna call for the question. Mr. Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Pete,
Yes.
Ms. Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Yes.
Vice Mayor, you voting?
Yes, I was waiting to hear you say it.
Yes. That motion carries 7-0.
Heard all those misters.
All right. Next is discussion on the future use of Ginn Memorial Park in our CIP. Can you put that picture back up of Ginn Memorial Park? Ms. Pete, you asked for this discussion too, right? On Ginn Park. Please, please. I'll give you the job if you want it.
When did you stop?
Well, it's because I do it they do it at the MVCA meeting, so
Can you go back to the presentation? There you go.
All right, so we prepare for our capital improvement plan, our capital improvement budget, discussions of future use of Ginn Memorial Park. This was, this park, Ginn Memorial Park was designed with programming for all ages. In the back, there was a tot lot for young toddlers. There was something for the adults. We had a multi-purpose field that wasn't big enough to really have regulation size soccer and youth football because it was just a few yards short of what it needed to be. Some of the future uses that we talked about in the past that we haven't talked about in a while was maybe some type of walking trails around that actually walk through the whole park. We also discussed the possibility of a pavilion out there for different youth events. And we also talked about a not just the terrace with the grass seat, the amphitheater, but the pavilion. And there was even some talks with some partnerships to have that help built with Kiwanis clubs and different organizations like that who wanted to participate in that. So what are some, is this a design we want to continue to consider, or is it something else we want to look at as a council? So I'll open that up for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I would definitely like to say thank you to Mr. Willie O'Kelly for putting this design together. It was amazing layout that we could move on. Yeah. Derek Brown, man, no man. But since I believe that we should move forward with this because we already have a layout. It's pretty much designed for phases. One of Mr. Willie Tony's favorite quotes, designed by purpose. To include the walking trail, that would go along well with the outdoor gym facility. With the amphitheater area, I don't know if we still need that, or we could come up with a different idea for that area right there, but it can be utilized. It's a nice piece of pad there. And if we could come up with some options for utilization there, that would be nice. Or maybe we stick with the amphitheater for plays from the children and things like that. But definitely upgrading our park area, cleaning up the perimeter of our park. We have a large tree that's on the backside laying down. We have overhang on grass and vines that are hanging all over our fences there. Some blowback and clean up. Well, we have Easter holidays coming up. The beginning of our spring months. If we can get the park upgrade for the spring, for the summer, cleaned up, things like that. Also, we only have 2 bleacher sets. Noticed some time ago the community had moved one of the bleacher sets over to the basketball court. If we could get that laid down of that land, that piece of grass there laid down, so we can put maybe 2 bleacher sets there and offering the other one there. I don't even know if we need the one over there by the walking trail. Now with the grass on the multi-purpose field there, I'm still in favor for wanting to turn that into maybe a 60, 70 yard, 80 yard. Well, 80 was too much at the time. So 60, 70 yard gridiron layout to where they can, do some soccer a little bit, some flag football there. You only need, I believe, 60, 70 yards for flag football. They can do some tournaments there, but some type of uses for the multi-purpose field there. And also, if we're going to do that, include I'm in favor of including the bleacher seatings on both sides of the multi-purpose court. And if we can get that piece of grass that's leading into the fence leveled out, that would be nice. As we had our community versus police department basketball tournament there. You know, some of our seniors were there, a couple of the residents from the town. That would have been nice, but they were kind of at an angle sitting. So if we can get that flattened out, I believe we can have a nice piece of park going on here. And definitely getting it ready for our Easter months. I mean, well, next month. Mayor, I yield there.
Thank you. So what happened to the plans that were laid out here? Why did they get stalled? Like the pavilion and what have you? So I would like that question answered if there is an answer. And then with regard to the bleachers, the last time that we were out there and we had an event, there were bleachers that were like moved because there is an awkward hill there. So can some grading be done there to flatten that out? And then there's just that green area. And right now, if we could have some pavilions where there are more, what do you call it? Areas to cook, because it could be grills. Thank you. I couldn't think of the name of it, but pavilions for grills so that families could have, family areas for cookouts. I think that would be a good use of space in that area, because otherwise I don't know if you don't have a car to drive to any of the other parks. The closest park is Locust Shade Park, going down Route 1. So to have pavilions with grill areas, I think that would be a good use of some of the space out there. And as far as the basketball courts are concerned, if there are games going on over there, there is nowhere to sit to watch the pickup games. And where I grew up, if pickup games were a thing of the summer, you go out and you sit around, the girls sit around and watch the boys play pickup games, and there's nothing to sit on. So having some bleachers or some benches other than the 1 or 2 benches that are out there, those 2 benches are not enough to sit around to watch the pickup games. So I think even more benches or maybe bleachers around the court to watch those games would be a good idea. I don't really see the value in the amphitheater there, especially if we're going to do some more with what will become our future rec center or community center. So I don't think that that's necessary anymore. But I do like the idea of a couple of pavilions and grills and a couple of bleachers around the courts so that folks can sit around and watch the pickup games.
So the pavilion just never got programmed and the council never made it a priority in future capital improvement plans. And so that's why we just came back to figure out what design consideration and what direction for completing this park we wanted to go with. As far as you identify on the diagram, there was 2 bleachers that were designed. Those iron rod bleachers are not cheap. Let me just say that on those two big bleachers. I remember when we purchased those. So it was only most of the playground I grew up in, the park and it was usually only 2 big. Everybody just sit around and kind of cheered. We didn't have a bunch of, but I guess when you grew up in the rich area, they had bleachers on the playgrounds in the basketball court. Most of the part, there were benches. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. The bleachers were programmed to be in certain areas in the park. Somebody did drag them over. It wasn't originally designed. What is missing is the plaque to dedicate the basketball court. I know the name is on there, but that plaque, is there a way to, I don't know, get it mounted on the fence or put back up that?
It's Willie Tubby Court, right?
Yeah. Do you know? Oh, you have it. You found. I thought somebody stole it. They did steal it. You found. Oh, it's not. Oh,
With the plaque by the.
yeah. Willie J. Tony. It's gone. No, that whole thing is gone. You didn't notice it.
Oh, we getting another one?
We didn't notice. So there is So I'm okay. I guess I guess if I wanted to see anything is to begin to cost out what it would be to the pavilion, to have a pavilion in and figure out what the cost and to be able to program that in the capital improvement. That would be my thought for the next phase, the pavilion. There are multiple grills. There are about 2 or 3 grills over on the backside, and then there's some close to where the proposed amphitheater was at. There's some grills already there.
They're not.
So that you know. And that's it. Did anybody? Wait, I'll come to this. Then we'll come back.
Yeah, I think everything that's presented except for the amphitheater, I'm for. The pavilions, definitely. I think we'll get a lot of use out of them. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. So I definitely support everything that everyone has said, but one thing I would like to see prioritized in this area, and this is in line with what Councilman Pete was saying in terms of beautification and the upkeep of the area. We definitely have got to, thank you to the police department for all you do. This is no reflection of you, but there is a lot of activity in the Ginn Park area that has just got to stop. There are safety concerns. There's a lot of unwarranted activity, and we got to crack down on that. Before we make any investments, we first got to make sure it's safe for kids and families to go over there. So we really got to do a better job of weeding that out before we capitalize on that other things. And that's all I have.
Did you speak yet? No, go ahead. Mr. Brown, you can go. You can go.
I really appreciate it, Mayor. So I agree with most of the council. The pavilion piece, not the pavilion, but the amphitheater. Tennis courts. Where's their tennis court in Dumfries?
Nowhere, though.
So again, I want to
And Danny Constance.
bring things to the community that we have to go outside the community to get to. And again, introducing our kids to things that are not available to them, that's what we should be doing. Also on the field, the big field in the back,
It's gonna bring it.
the big field in the back, soccer. Wouldn't it be nice for Dumfries to have a soccer team that runs the county? That's a pretty athletic sport. You have to be in shape. It's pretty safe in comparison to most other sports. And it's something that our kids can get into at a very, very, very early age. So again, invest in some effort in things that are new to the community. I think we need to kind of bring that to the park. And when I say bring it to the park, I'm not saying halfway. We should have some nets out there. We should have a grid out there so we can practice and hold tournaments within the town and then move outside of town. So those are the things that I would like to see in the beautification of the park, upkeep of the park. So those are the things I would like to see there. And that's all I have, Mayor.
No, that's a great point. And I don't know if where the amphitheater was, if there was a reason we couldn't put another court there. I guess we can look at, because I think we talked about another basketball court or that tennis court. I guess if we can look at it, maybe we put that down to see if another court could fit where the amphitheater was in the trail. Possibly. Let me come and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Oh, no.
Thank you. So as far as I know, Councilman Pete had mentioned something about fields, and then you mentioned something also about soccer. When it comes to like flag football and soccer, I do know that because my son plays flag football and I have a niece that plays soccer, I know that the schools have the fields and they allow a lot of the different leagues to use those fields that have the soccer nets and flag football. So I say that to say Grand Park being across the street, my son has played flag football right across the street at the Grand Park Middle School field. So I say that to say, when it comes to soccer, if there is no, to your point, tennis court anywhere in our community, then to me, that would be a better use of the space than say a flag football field when Grand Park is across the street and leagues are able to use Grand Park's field for flag football. Then what sense would it make for us to consider a flag football field here when they can use Grand Park as opposed to, for instance, a tennis court? It doesn't make sense to me to duplicate efforts.
The biggest issue with why the basketball court didn't go over there, if you look there are houses right there. Williamstown community sits right there. So one of the things they took in consideration is noise. We no, I'm talking about the basketball court. Where the basketball court is over here on this multi-purpose field, there was nothing intently not put over there because we do have a couple of 2 or 3 seniors that routinely complain about even the noise still from there. And so we tried to, when the park was designed, create it as a buffer. And that's why they moved the basketball court furthest away from where the houses was. We tried to take in consideration when this was kind of designed.
Maybe like as far as like a tennis court or something.
A tennis court or something going on that side. It was noise. So, being a part of some of those early planning stages, those were some of the conversations that came up with why that was built the way it was because of the noise. And so you see it was supposed to be a tree line back there to block the houses and
it's not.
we know that noise can be an issue with some of that.
And also, man,
That's why we don't have chain link basketball nets. If you notice, they're rope nets. They're not link nets. It's because of the noise.
and other communities around the DMV are complaining about pickleball. So once you get the tennis court, it doesn't take much to shorten that to do pickleball. People can draw their own lines on the court and play pickleball. So that's gonna be a noise complaint too. That's been all over the DMV. Vienna, I think, even passed the ordinance they can only play at certain days of the week and certain times. Yeah. So we do have to consider noise.
All right. Any other discussion on this topic? Yes, sir.
Just 3 bullets. Also, town manager, if we noticing that while I was out there, if we can get someone to, being that we're about to get into our spring months, if we can get someone to re-secure the basketball goals itself, that even on the south side, the north side in basketball goal, it shifts right or left all the way. My worry there is that it may drop. In the I thought about in that amphitheater area also of maybe we can put pickleball right there. No, not at all, because when I do an about face, I'm looking right at the main road, as in if we were to put a tennis court there, the ball's being boom, boom, boom into the main road there. So, just something to think about as we look at it, security and safety also. I'm definitely in support of the soccer field in the back. Or maybe we can multi-field it and put the lines and the soccer field. I don't know. Because they, periodically we have a youth organization that comes and runs their football league down there sometimes in practice and utilizes Get Memorial Park's pad back there. So just some bullets on to think about. Are you?
All right. There's no cameras there in the park.
There are lights and there's broadband and the poles are electrified. We don't have cameras yet. I have been in discussions with the chief to install cameras out for a number of reasons, for all the reasons Chair Pro Tem Miles mentioned earlier about safety.
Yeah, we that was part of the discussion when we built this thing. And the rescue squad chief at the time, his name was Derek too. Go for it. He was talking about letting us use it and put cameras. At the time, there was no power. So when we did the broadband install, we brought power to the park. That's why you see the light poles and stuff there now. But when we built this park, there was no power, there was no water. So there was certain things we couldn't put in when we built this park. And so now that we have added a lot of stuff, now we can look at that. Now, do you need direction for us, or will you pretty much got what you need, or do we need to on the park?
Oh man.
I have direction, except for that front area where the amphitheater is. Are you looking for another basketball court? Are you looking for a tennis court? Or
I
nothing.
think we just want a trail or maybe an access point to that parking lot to be able to connect to the fitness court and to the future community center. So maybe,
some steps.
Yeah, we're working on the steps already.
oh, you are, okay.
Yeah.
So will there be a walking trail?
You got a walking trail possibly around it?
We can,
So I
Or-
guess the big thing, maybe see if some other grills can fit there or some more benches or seating area instead. You can see, you could, yeah, with an amphitheater. Okay.
And do we have plans to replace the sign?
Oh,
yeah.
replace, I'm
The-
sorry.
The basketball court dedicated to Willie J. Tony.
Yes, we were looking into it. We were looking at doing something a little that you can't just pick up and take away from.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Being that you spoke of water there, Mayor, Town Manager, can we look into it and reach back out to the county to see what we can do to bring water fountains to our park?
It is very
We're going-
expensive.
$50,000 water tap.
It's
That's something
very
we bring up
expensive.
When we have our meeting supervisor.
As I often bring this up and been doing this for multiple years of trying to bring water to our park and tapping into the main line. There's often when I'm going to the county and bringing cases of water out of my pocket to give to the guys at the basketball court, it'd be pretty hot out there. And I don't want to see a casualty or anything like that. I can continue to bring water to the court, but if we can definitely look into the county and see where we're at. Now, I know we did this years ago, but if we can look into that to see where we're at with, I was always proposing 2 water fountains, one on the west and east wing of it. But definitely if we can look in, maybe it's too cost efficient, but if we can revisit that, please. Thank you.
So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. A Debbie Downer. But I think we need to look for not just the cost. We need to look for the best interest. And right now, I didn't know there was no water out there. That's unsaid. That is, and it's gonna cost us, but that's unsaid. You got a park, we're trying to build around it, we're trying to build up, we want our community to come out, and there's no water there. That is totally unsaid. So whatever we need to do as a town, whatever we get the funding from, whatever we need to do, we need to get some water out to that park. So let's not worry about cost per se. Let's try to make this happen.
I propose we prioritize that over the community center.
Water fountain out there?
Yes, absolutely. Because the summer will be here, and every summer that we go with our children playing basketball out there in the sun with no shade, we are at risk for casualties. Our summers are getting hotter, our winters are getting hotter, and that's unacceptable. I did not realize that there were folks out there exerting themselves in that heat without water. I didn't realize that. I mean, because I'm not out there. But to know that, to me, that is a bigger priority than,
Remember Willie Tony almost passed out at the dedication because it was so hot. There's no water.
but I didn't realize that it wasn't, I didn't know it's before. Yeah, I didn't realize that. So to me, that's a bigger priority than even what we're trying to do with the community center. And if we have money to put into the community center, I mean, it would be nice to try and get the county to move on it, but we all know how fast or slow rather that train pulls in and out of the station. So it's something that we have to do ourselves. And I recommend we prioritize that over everything else at this point.
Would you be able to bring some options to us for water in the parks?
Do you mean like how you access the water, like
Well,
types of water?
we know we
fountains?
got to tap into water, but are there any alternatives besides doing a full water tap? But the reason we went with the alternative with the bathrooms is because we knew that the water tap was an issue,
Right,
which is why we got the rainwater and we
Right.
built the bathroom facilities that we had out there now. But what are some options for drinking water and things like that out there?
it really comes down
To
to
tapping into.
having access to public water, right? Like
Okay.
not necessarily having water fountains. I don't know if you know, when you go to the airports now, they have places where you put water bottles, right? Instead of water fountains. Those are more popular. And it cuts down on the plastic use, right? So it's kind of a green alternative. It still requires water.
All right, so what do you all want to do with this? Are you making a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we direct the town manager to move forward with the planning and designs that have correct consideration that was laid out for us tonight.
What, let's read back, what are all the plans you have so that we're clear on the plans and
For
consideration?
Ginn Park, we talked about a pavilion, removing grass and vegetation around the perimeter, installing more grills, bleacher sets, possibly striping a football field. We said no to tennis courts, right? I put down a skateboard park, but that's it, soccer fields. Do some repairs to the basketball goals, cameras, and a water fountain.
If
So-
that,
Well,
That's in no priority,
No,
okay.
in no order. That was me writing it down.
Mr. Brown wanted to get a straw poll on the tennis courts to see where everybody, if he wanted the tennis courts on the amphitheater. Trina, you want tennis courts? You want pickleball and tennis courts is the same thing. So no, I just want to get a. You want to look at tennis
point of
courts
order,
with the
point
pickle?
of order,
Yes.
point of
You did-
order.
Okay,
There was a motion on the floor.
I know, we're getting clarity on nobody seconded the motion.
I was getting ready to.
Yeah. Okay.
So where are we? Point of order, please. Where are we?
We're in the middle of just getting clarity on what the motion is. So that's what we are. So we're in clarity on the motion, but if you want to second it,
Okay, it's because
are you clear on
I-
what you're seconding?
I
What is
believe
the
we have,
motion?
I believe we have to second, and then we go over questions.
No, not necessarily. We was trying to get clarity on the motion, but if you
Okay,
want
we
to
got
second,
clarity on the motion. I'll second.
Okay.
Second.
all right. So now we'll finish with discussion. Thank you, sir. And you said on the sentence,
What is the motion?
the motion is consideration to everything she read off.
So the motion is everything that you read off? Okay,
Not a
not a
priority.
priority.
And now we're just getting clarity on the tennis court because she was unclear on the tennis court.
Okay.
So you three said, yes, you're interested.
Did we determine where we were putting the tennis court? Because I thought the point of contention was where it was going to go in relation to the street and
So that's,
where.
we're gonna look and see if it fits where the amphitheater is.
Yeah, because I wasn't the concern that that was too close to the street, and that's why we were saying no to the tennis court.
So I'm sorry, but most tennis courts have a fence built around so balls don't pop out. So I'm just saying in most environments that I go play tennis at.
They got fences.
Fence, so that would take care of the balls moving out.
That was always in my mind. I didn't see a tennis court without a fence, so. And oriented so that the cross play balls would hit like the bathroom or they would hit the parking lot. They wouldn't hit the street. I'm not gonna say there wouldn't be any tennis balls that wouldn't hit the street, but if it fits.
I'm gonna have to say no, and the only reason I'm gonna say no is because I drive that street, and the minute a tennis ball hits my car, we're gonna have problems.
I definitely see the vision of this, Mr. Brown. But I definitely see the bad safety in it also. Cause that street there is a pretty populated street, right? And adjacent from that, where we're talking about putting the tennis court, adjacent from that, already we have a problem. We have trees on the opposite side that are leaning into our lane over top of the head, falling, tree lines, well, trees are breaking off, falling on cars. Now we're looking to add in tennis balls. Now, there is a way around it, like you said, with the fence and, playing tennis in youth. The larger fence holes cause the balls to go out easier. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone. But they're smaller holes. And if we can get smaller holes with a nice leveled up fence, I would say yes.
I mean, if we find if I can go.
If we can get it high enough with the smaller holes to where you can't push a ball through their fence, you know, the regular.
Yes.
I wanna go do it.
I believe we can get it done. So I'm gonna say yes.
To keep from having noise complaints in the future, I would say no.
We'll put it in some motion. And agreement with the motion as presented. Any opposed? Thank you. The ayes have it. All right, last discussion item. The creation of a naming policy.
Excuse me. I requested that the water be prioritized over the
Yeah.
rescue squad.
Yes, ma'am. I wrote it down as a priority.
Okay.
The water line and cameras to address safety and then everything else will fall in together after that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, wanted to present, I talked to some of the, some of our elders in the community about what was our process of naming this building, naming the police station, naming Gibb Memorial Park. And I checked in all our resolutions and we never really had a concise naming policy that was created. It was just kind of like willy-nilly, free for all type of thing. So just to codify it, before you, I'll just read this and go through this real fast, and then you all can say if there are any things or if you think this is pretty concrete. The purpose of this policy is to establish a consistent, transparent, and meaningful process for naming and renaming government buildings and town parks in the town of Dumfries. This policy aims to recognize the contributions of individuals or organizations who have made a significant positive impact on the community or have contributed to the growth and development of our town. Eligibility: any government building or town park in the town of Dumfries may be considered for naming or renaming, including newly construction or existing facilities. However, buildings or parks that have already been named or renamed will not be considered unless there is a compelling reason to do so. The following criteria will be used to evaluate potential names or renaming of government buildings. The individual organization being considered must have significant positive contributions to the town of Dumfries or its residents. The name or renaming must be relevant and meaningful to the community and its history. The name or renaming must be respectful and appropriate. The name or renaming should not promote any particular religion, political party, or ideology. The name or renaming should not be identical or too similar to any existing street names, park names, or other name locations within the town. The process for naming or renaming government buildings in the town parks in the town of Dumfries will be as following. Any member of the community may submit a nomination for a government building or town park name or renaming. The nomination must be submitted in writing and must include supporting documentation such as, i.e., a resume or list of accomplishments to demonstrate eligibility of the individual or organization being considered. The nomination can be reviewed by a naming committee, consists of the mayor, town manager, and 2 council members appointed by the town council. The naming committee will evaluate each nomination based on the established criteria and will make the recommendations to the entire council body for final approval. The town council will have final authority to approve or reject any proposed names or renamings for the government buildings and town parks. Renaming policy. If a compelling reason arises to rename a government building or town park, the following additional process will be following. A request for renaming may be submitted in writing to the mayor or town council. The request must include a detailed explanation of why the renaming is necessary, including any historical or cultural context. The request will be reviewed by the naming committee, which will make a recommendation to the town for final approval. The town council will have the final authority to approve or reject any proposed renaming of a government building. Implementation. Once a name or renaming has been approved for a government building or town park, the town of Dumfries will notify the public of the new name or renaming through local media or the town's website. The town will also work with the appropriate agencies to update any necessary signage, maps, or relevant materials. By adopting this policy, we can ensure that the names and the renamings of government buildings and town parks in the town of Dumfries reflect the values and history of our community, while also recognizing the contribution of those who have helped to shape our town. Town attorney.
I did have one question, Mr. Mayor. I know that it's a lot to read this whole thing. Did you mean to include the renaming as well? Section 5 at the top?
Yeah, so I wanted to have a naming and a renaming.
Okay.
Say,
I just wondered because
say-
you did not cover that. That's why I didn't know whether you deliberately left it out. when you-
no, I thought I read it.
Okay.
I didn't read it though.
Okay, I got
Yes,
it.
thank-
Okay.
I was reading
Okay.
fast.
Thanks. No problem.
Okay. Vice Mayor, question, Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. So what I don't see on here is the community's input on this. So will there be a public hearing added to this process? So once we go through the process step 4, going through 4A through D, will a public hearing be offered so that the public can at least give their comments to weigh in? Otherwise, I don't see any other place here for the public to give their,
So in criteria is where I gave the public an opportunity.
sorry, did I miss that?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the process and the criteria. So the process, any member of the community may submit, so the public can
But that's
submit it.
Also in
That's
6,
And what's the other section?
6.
And section
And
6,
6, what does it say there?
once the naming or rename has been approved, the town will notify the public. But
That's-
you want the public to come in and give comment on it?
I mean, otherwise they're not. So the ability to make a suggestion can come from seat 1 right here. Otherwise, we're not giving the public the proper opportunity for input.
So where do you want to put it?
So as a part of the process where we make it available, the town council, where was it on here where it said,
It's just never been necessary in the past when we named this building and other buildings, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, and I'm not saying that what we want to do is go out and survey the whole town, but if we pride ourselves on public engagement, then I do think that at the very least, and I'm okay with that, because you ask too many questions, you get too many answers. But I think that at the very least, if we open it up for public hearing, then the onus is on the public to then take the time to come in here and stand here and give their input, but we want to at least give them the opportunity to provide their input. So I think that once we go through this process and make our decision, then they should have the opportunity to provide their input in public hearing.
I'm thinking about the 5 or 6 documents that I read. So no other one had a public, but don't mean we can't be the first. You had something and then I come around.
Only 2 things, Mr. Mayor. One, to address the vice mayor's concern.
Mhm.
If you want to do that, you could put in 4.1C down at the bottom for final approval following a public hearing. And that was,
So following the public hearing,
right,
Like we do for ordinances.
yes.
yes, and then
Yes, I have a question. Will we still be required to pass a resolution once we decide that we're adopting it? And will we have to pass a resolution saying that building A is now Colonial Miles built?
Yeah, we can put in that we'll pass the renaming by resolution.
So if we
So
were to
that'd be a
do,
great one.
okay, so follow-up question, if we were to do a resolution, don't we have to do a public hearing for resolution or no?
No,
No, okay,
no.
okay.
Councilman Brown?
So Mayor, I have a lot of issues with this,
Okay.
and I didn't go read other towns' processes. But you have some things in here, like in 3 criteria. The name renaming should not promote. So that means you can promote it when you say should not. That's a option.
negative.
No, that's telling me that that's not permanent. I can. And so that brings some confusion there. And so every time I see should in here, should not, it should be either it can or can't.
Yeah.
And that would be clear in those areas. And then I go back to the purpose of this document, which I believe is to make sure that we have a structured way of renaming and naming buildings in the town of Dumfries.
Say that last part again.
The purpose of this document is to bring structure to how we rename and name buildings in the town of Dumfries. The renaming piece I have a problem with because it's too easy for us as a council to rename a building because we feel like it. We may not be council all the time. And we're setting a process and policy that people will follow. For example, if I want to rename this building here and I can get you all to vote, the public does not have a say on that because we actually control whether it's going to be approved or not. They come in and petition.
Mhm.
The other piece is if I want, as a resident, if I wanted to rename a building, it shouldn't just be me driving that. I should have enough people in the community that says, yes, this is a good idea. So why can't we have that person as a criteria to have at least 50 people sign a petition to sign that? So we know that they have community support and it's not just us making a decision. So those type of things, they don't have to be here. But if we're trying to bring structure and we hold ourselves accountable and be transparent to the town, this is the way we can do that. And it's not willy-nilly because again, I think we're trying to bring structure. And we don't want anybody to challenge why we did it because I felt like that's not how this should be working. So a lot of those things can be added in here if we as a council want to, but those are the areas that I have a little concern with. No.
Councilman Fields, no.
This is more of the same of what Councilman Brown is talking about. The buildings that, if I'm not mistaken, we only have 3. This building, the police department, and the community center.
Game Park, the rescue squad.
I'm going by buildings. Okay,
No, because go ahead.
buildings and parks and things of so forth. At whatever point in time that these buildings were named, they were significant at the time and got approval at the time. I think any building, and I think the research was done at the time to have these buildings named after whoever they're named after. I think they should be protected. What's here is what's here. Going forward, something different. But I think what's already established, they should be grandfathered and protected. Not as anyone with 50 signatures or 100 signatures. They don't like the name and they want to name it after their grandpa or grandmother or aunt or uncle. They just come up and change it. We know this building has great significance, but what if another council 10, 20 years from now decided they want to name it after their grandpa? Police department, the Ginn Park and the streets that we have named or co-named. Anyone 10 or 15 years later could take that away. It's significant to somebody and a whole lot of somebodies for each one of these buildings. And I don't think we should leave it accessible or able to be changed. New stuff, yes, but anything that's existing should be grandfathered and not able to be touched.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would just say that I would disagree with the renaming structure because I think, yes, those things were important to the person at that time, But names of buildings and names of locations also reflect the values of that time. An example of this is Confederate Court. So Confederate Court reflected the values of Virginia at that time. We changed that to Lane. We have kids attending schools named Robert E. Lee High School. I don't think that's, I think that there is a time and a place. I don't think that, and there is a process in hand. So it's not as if somebody would come up with 50 signatures and then we were automatically change the name. That person would come up with their 50 signatures by, if I'm understanding what Councilman Brown is saying, they would come up with their 50 signatures. It would go before the committee. These are people that the people elected and that they trust to lead them. And then if they deem appropriate, then they're going to bring the recommendation to the entire body and they'll say yes. And I would imagine that would only happen if something egregious has happened and they feel the need to rename. I don't agree necessarily that we need to protect things that were named 300 years ago, that when you know better, you do better. So
What I'm saying, Ms. Jones, is I think we have safely already done that with a lot of what we got here already. So going forward, I'm just saying, we can itemize certain buildings not to be messed with. No? Okay.
nah. But I do agree. But the only thing is, I think maybe we need to have a conversation about the 50 names. If we are going to have a petition, we need to verify that these 50 people live in Dumfries, that they, meet the criteria to, petition. But yeah.
This is great discussion. I mean, we can mark it up and bring it back to a later meeting. The one thing I didn't add to this document was street names. I don't know if it'd be appropriate to add street names to this policy as well, a policy for naming streets, parks, and facilities.
Well, for streets, you've got to go through VDOT in order to get that approved, so.
We don't have any streets in the town.
There are no towns.
Except for Maine or-
I'm corrected by the interim town manager. You have that ability, okay?
So is it simple to just add
You could
streets?
add street names then.
Okay, so we'll
Yes.
edit that. Mr. Brown, I'm open for, hold on, everybody. Let's try to keep it to one. What are you proposing to add and where, so we can mark this document up and then bring it back
Okay,
for resolution?
and criteria. Just take out the should and the,
Take out the word should in criteria.
yeah, should not. Should not, should.
Should be will not.
Well, I don't know, but that needs to be changed.
Could be
So-
will or shall or
Yes,
must.
yes.
Will not promote.
Yeah.
Okay, so take out the word should and put will.
And then I think in
You want it
criteria also, that's where we should write something in about.
3D, you want to take out the word should there too?
Yes, if it says should, anywhere in this document say should. we should
Okay.
put it out.
So Ms. Pandek, if you get, we'll make these edits and come back.
And also under 3.0, we need to put in something about the person or organization will bring a petition before the commission.
Following criteria we use, the individual or being considered must have made significant positive contribution.
Somewhere in there, we need, that's where
Okay.
we, so again, it's
Criteria.
on the person that's trying to rename
Okay.
a building.
So in 3.1, the individual organizations will bring petitions will bring petitions as well as something like that.
I think it needs to go under criteria. So a petition must be presented
Okay.
following a petition must be presented that follows the criteria. Something like that, because the criteria listed in 3.1 A through D is the criteria of the name that's being presented. So the petition is saying that this is how it's being presented, and then this is the criteria used for the, you know what I'm saying?
So you want to do
So the
a petition of 50 town residents?
Yeah.
Same amount it takes you to get on the ballot.
Well, I'm saying,
Which could
that's from
change
that's right, you gotta go around your neighborhood and your neighbors and make sure that they're on board with this before you come to the town.
Yeah, are they about me? Yeah, we're gonna. Reflect what we want. and we feel like we want to name
We
it.
still will make the committee will still make the decision. But it's gonna eliminate people just dropping off something, say, I want to rename, and it's a compelling reason, and no one has input for that one person for that organization. I'm trying to get the citizens of Dumfries involved in the process. So I just want to make sure that the process includes the citizens of Dumfries, because before they know it, that name has been renamed. And they're like, well, what happened? And then we say, well, we have a process, persons that have to come in, be compelling, and the council will vote on it, and that's it. So getting that person or that organization who wants to rename to go around the community and get some signatures first. The community is gonna start talking about, they're gonna rename this. That's gonna bring more people, I believe, to the public hearing once that happens. And we will have a transparent and a fair process of renaming and naming buildings. So that's the overall goal here for me.
Sure, but I think it's also important to define what a qualified citizen is in the process, because if you're just random, like, I mean, are we talking about people over the age of 18? Are we talking about registered voters? Who are we talking about that's eligible to sign the same? Because anybody just can't sign our petition when we're getting on the ballot.
So maybe it follows the same guidelines as those required for election petitions. And the reason I say that is because it keeps it simple, but it also keeps it fluid. And the reason I say it keeps it fluid is because we know that the guidelines for those petitions are fluid based on how many residents we have also. And that includes over 18, being someone who lives here and is verifiable. But then who verifies it? Is that what you wrote?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
So the verification is based upon the resident address that we put on the petition, because everything is not wrapped in a package with a bow on it. But again, we need to make sure that, again, if we're trying to bring structure here, that there's a process that can be verified or can be validated. If 38% of that petition we validate, and then we have a consideration of whether we're going to pass this with the two people on the council supporting the recommendation to the whole council, at least we do have an idea that there's a sense of community that's behind this petition. So it may not be 50, it may not, but again, we have a individual organization that's inside our community speaking about the renaming of the building before it gets here.
And I'm not trying to give you a hard time, I
Well-
promise I'm not. I just, but you're saying it depends on what address that they put down on the petition. Let's suppose I put down on the address on here, and it's not being verified, that my address is 5528 Market Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Who is verifying that? If even though that's not the point, because it's not going place, obviously it's not taking place in Philadelphia. But how do we know that these people are from here? Because I bring this up because we've seen political operatives go into different communities and influence the work that's going on in that community, and they're not from there. So that's my concern. Could we be influenced? How do we verify that these people are from here and that this is really being driven from our community? You see what I'm saying?
It's definitely gonna bring in another piece, because people who have an address here, like we found out, when she tried to get on the ballot, even though you get 75 signatures, 45 aren't even qualifying to be here or in the area. So it's finding that person who's gonna verify it. And the petition idea is great, but it is gonna come with, like, then who, like, is council going out to verify? Is staff going out to verify?
I'll verify.
You go.
So here's the deal. Here's part of the criteria. If you bring a petition that the person that signed is not a part of Dumfries, your petition, your request is rejected automatically. So again, put some ownership back on that person or the organization that's bringing the petition. They are to make sure that these people are in town of Dumfries. If we check all of the 50 and one is not a part of town of Dumfries, we're going to reject that that petition rename, period. Again, you're not going to come in here half-stepping. We're talking 50, we're talking 50 residents.
Any further discussion on it? All right, so the mock-ups we want to come on this to bring back is in the criteria. I'll see if Ms. Pandek can wordsmith that. We're gonna take all the shoulds and make them will. For 1C, at the end of that, we're gonna put following a public hearing. So if council approve following the public hearing. So every place where council will approve, we'll put following a public hearing. All right, were there any other edits to the document that we
Adding
need?
street names.
Oh, we want to add street names to the policy.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I might just go back and maybe offer a different than what I said originally. I think since instead of going should to will, the other criteria all say must, and maybe it ought to be must consistently throughout that. So, yeah, instead of will. And then you want petitions both for the naming and for renaming?
Just for the rename. I think.
Just
new
for-
building- new building is-
Okay.
for the rename.
Okay. Okay, and it's 50 town residents.
Eligible voters.
Okay, so 50 eligible voters who are town residents. Yes.
Well, did he say eligible? I didn't. You didn't say. Because if you say eligible, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, that's.
That's why I'm trying to, which one do you want?
leave you alone.
I don't say scratch the eligible voter. I would say if you're a resident, may not be it, but the voter. but if you're
Over 18?
Yeah, over.
If you're over 18, I would just make this argument. If you're over 18 and you're not eligible, and you're not a registered voter. Why can't you, if that's the case, a 60-year-old that lives here should be able to sign a petition. They live here. They might work in their taxes too. I mean.
Bypassed a lot of houses that without, they did not vote,
And that's.
but they live in Dumfries.
Well,
So
That's how
they
you
say, I
vote.
want to rename the building because I believe in this cause and behind.
Yeah, vote. They gotta be, I'm going with eligible voters.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, eligible. We gonna get, we
You don't
gonna,
have no votes.
yeah, we all, the majority gonna say, if we gonna do petitions and we renaming buildings,
Okay.
they gonna contribute.
and actually though.
They gonna contribute to the
And
well-being.
actually, that's easier to verify.
Yes.
It's easier to verify.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll leave it.
Send out the legal women voters at the same time on the petition they signed.
Okay, so we'll bring this document back. Any further discussion on the naming policy?
Can we have a stretch break?
You want a stretch break?
Stretch break.
Stretch break? Okay, we'll take a stretch.
I was just kidding.
Okay, well, at this time, it's promised, this meeting is adjourned. No, 9:04, you took it.